to part 4 of The Ultimate. We are trying to figure out who is the Ultimate NWA/WCW World Champion from 1981 to 2001, basically covering Jim Crockett Promotions all the way through the end of WCW. I'm Mike, and I'm joined by Merciless Don Matthews, the disorderly Phillip Pain, and the unstoppable Shadow Jackson.
Tom Brady is the greatest of all time.
The hell you say. And so,
Strive for 5.
So let's take a look here at this week's bracket. This one's got some interesting matchups in it. We will kick things off with Hollywood Hulk Hogan, or the Immortal. He held it as both. Going one-on-one with Hiroshi Hase. Don?
Hogan.
Okay. Nothing more than that?
Hogan. None. Boot and a leg drop. Greatest. No, I'm kidding. I'm not really familiar with a whole lot of Hiroshi Hase's stuff, but Hogan. I'm just saying Hogan.
I think Hogan basically wound up at a period of time when WCW needed a shot in the arm to make it relevant on the national stage again. Enter Hulk Hogan. Hiroshi Hase was NWA champion, which I think was, to be honest, was largely political to strengthen ties with Japan. So I gave it to Hogan. Because Hogan can work the Japanese style. He did it. He was the first IWGP Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah. Yes.
Despite the fact that they never put his name on the lineage. You can go find a match with him wearing the belt against Antonio Inoki.
Yep.
And he was good in Japan too now.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had to wrestle over there.
Yeah. And
one of my favorite matches of all time is actually from his last run as WWF champion in the early 90s after WrestleMania 9. It's him being managed by Jimmy Hart against the Great Muta. The match spills to the floor, and you see Hulk Hogan hit an enziguri.
wow.
Yeah.
What's it?
He hits an enziguri, and he takes a vertical suplex on the floor.
I'm looking that shit up on the network.
I know you won't find it.
No, you got to YouTube that.
YouTube that one.
Isn't there that the one where Vince tells Hogan, go out there and beat this man because we're not coming back here?
No.
Which
that
one
was
is that?
That was Andre, wasn't it?
No, it was him and Fujinami.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was working Tatsumi Fujinami, and they were scared Fujinami was going to double cross him because traditionally the WWF had always put the belt on a Japanese star at the beginning of a tour and then traded it back at the end. That's how Antonio Inoki became WWF champion. He beat Backlund at the top of the tour, and then Backlund won it back. No, in this particular one, if I remember the match correctly, Muta kicks out of the leg drop.
Ooh.
And Hogan goes over with a lariat because in Japan his big finish had always been the axe bomber, clothesline. So, and he was actually it was more like axe bomba. Bomba. He is a.
I prefer lasagna.
Well, what say you, Shadow?
Hogan, just because, like you just said, he's familiar with that style. I had to YouTube some of Hase's stuff because I wasn't familiar, but after seeing his style and his matches, I think Hogan was just overwhelming.
Okay.
I went with Hogan as well. Hulkamania starts up strong.
3 punches, a boot, and a leg drop.
It's a familiar thing.
5
You hear it
minutes.
again.
Granted,
5 minutes of room service.
3 punches, a boot, and a leg drop, although Luthez's grandma could have done it better. So said Luthez. All right. Next up, it's the All-American Ron Simmons going one-on-one with Bret the Hitman Hart. What say you, Mr. Payne?
I'm going Ron Simmons. Ron comes out strong. Unexpectedly against the Hitman and just wears the Hitman out. Just totally physically dominates him.
Okay.
Now, Bret Hart is a hell of a wrestler. Technical perfection.
Mm-hmm. That's Chad Parham. Anyway.
Hi, Chad.
How you doing?
But I have to give it to Ron Simmons.
How about you, Shadow?
Ron Simmons, because we're talking about WCW.
Time frame.
Yeah, not WWE. And Ron Simmons at that time was the man that put Vader down.
Yes.
So that has to hold water, that has to hold alcohol, that has to hold anything that can be consumed. So that being said, from an intensity standpoint, Ron Simmons.
I went with Ron Simmons as well, and the rationale for me was very simple. Bret Hart as WCW champion, it it was the death throes of WCW when he held the
Yeah.
title. Whereas Ron Simmons, he was the hottest hand in the business for when he won the title. The way he won it, and it meant so much. He was the first African American to ever hold a recognized world championship in professional wrestling.
And he
Period.
wore a headband.
Yes, but he also, I mean, but with being the first,
match.
with being the first black world
Lesnar's
champion.
just trying to do it now.
The thing that I found so interesting about it is if you go back and you watch Ron Simmons' promos and the way he carried himself,
He's real.
he carried himself as the world champion. He was like a throwback to a Harley Race, to a Ric Flair, to the guy when he showed up. He was in the nice suit. He had the belt with him. He answered questions. I mean, he carried himself like a professional athlete at the top of his game. And you know, Bret Hart, as good and legit as Bret Hart can be, he was the champion when WCW was about ready to fold up. So, how about you, sir?
And I agree with everything you guys said, and I just want to throw in one last thing. Dang!
Ron Simmons, who had the second prettiest spine buster in professional wrestling, might have had.
And
was
Arn
first?
Anderson.
Arn Anderson.
Ah, yeah. I thought you meant Shadow.
No.
That
The,
joker
ma-
hurts.
the master of the 1031.
That joker hurts. I know.
Halloween.
I had to coin a term for his spine buster after his leg injury. Because before the leg injury, he actually did the Arn Anderson spine buster with the turn. Afterwards, it was just straight up and straight down. And unless Shadow wasn't feeling it that night, in which case it was straight up and he just threw the guy down.
Yeah, get off me.
which I coined the phrase, the throwaway spine buster. So, all right, next
Get off
up.
me, kid. Get off me.
It ain't your night tonight.
That's not going to work for me. Brother.
Your finish ain't working for me.
There was always a part of me that was waiting for Shadow to pull a Harley Race when someone would come up to him and go, "So Shadow, what do you think we're doing tonight?" "What's your finish, kid?" I do a moonsault off the top. "I'll move."
That ain't it.
No, Harley apparently did that on a show. That's a legendary story. Someone, "What's your what's your finish, kid?" "I do a flying up. I'll move." That was Harley. That's the finish. So there you go. Next up, and this could be an interesting one. We've got the Giant, not the Big Show, not Paul White. The Giant goes up against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Mr. Payne.
My heart goes to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat,
Okay.
but I don't think he can overcome the Giant.
Okay.
He chops on, he comes off top rope with a chop, he chops on, he just can't do it. He runs into that choke slam, it's over. That's too much man for Ricky, for the Dragon, I think.
I'm going to give it to Steamboat. The bottom line is Steamboat won. The Giant was not Andre. So they didn't book him like Andre. He was more athletic than Andre. He could sell.
He did throw Andre's shirt at Hogan, though.
He did. But horrible angle. Even the idea that they tried to pawn him off.
It's the Princess Bride shirt.
Even if they tried to pawn him off as related to Andre was just horrible. But Steamboat was so good at whatever style he needed to be at. He could adapt to anybody. I think you would see Steamboat do the classic babyface, get his ass beat for the better part of 10 minutes. And then somehow, some way, even if it was get the Giant outside of the ring and get the Giant counted out, somehow Steamboat would win. What say you, Don?
I gotta disagree with you on that one. Steamboat's moveset would be nil against the Giant. The Giant in the beginnings of WCW, when he came in and he won the heavyweight title right off the bat, the guy was unstoppable. He was a brick wall. I mean, how long did it take before anybody bumped him? I mean, for real.
Probably Hogan.
Yeah, it was a minute.
Okay, so we're talking 240 pounds, very strong, very stout. Ricky Steamboat who wouldn't be believable to slam him. We're talking, he'd have to. I could see Ricky Steamboat beating the Giant if he was a heel. Ricky Steamboat would never be a heel because the way to beat the Giant would be to chop block him from behind, to drop kick him in the knees and do things that would look like it would try to legitimately hurt him. And Ricky Steamboat wouldn't have the heart to do that. You know, it wouldn't be in his character. It wouldn't be in his mindset to do anything to legitimately hurt the Giant. And that's the only way that I could see him beating him. Yeah, he's going to take a beat down, and he's going to lose because once he takes that beat down, even when he's babyface firing up, he's not going to pull the trigger. He's Batman. He's not going to kill him.
But you're looking at you know what the offensive stuff that Steamboat liked to use. Don't forget, Steamboat was a whole lot of strikes.
It was a whole lot of strikes.
You don't have to be fighting somebody smaller than you for a strike to work.
You're right, but when you fighting somebody who can bench press your house and is quick like the Giant is, all he's got to do is get his hands on him. And in a wrestling match, you're going to get your hands on the other person. It's not a measure of if, it's a measure of when. And when the Giant got his hands on him and throws him into the third row, I don't see Steamboat beating him. You're not going to get one of those deep arm drags on the Giant. If you do, he's going to tear his own arm off. I mean, and if we're looking at this as in height of their career, I still don't see Steamboat beating the Giant because the Giant's too big, he's too overpowering, and he hits too hard. I mean, that's a legit bad man. Even back then when he was green, he was bad. I mean, his finish back in the day before the chokeslam even was big, didn't he used to do a missile drop kick?
He could.
That's
I don't think
exactly
that was his finish.
But that make a missile drop kick. Could you imagine what would have happened to poor Ricky Steamboat if he'd got missile drop kicked by the Giant? It would have looked like a Mortal Kombat finish.
You know what the finish of that match would have been? He'll move. What do you got, sir?
I think something you said a few shows back shows me that the Giant would lose, and it's what you would always go to, moveset.
Yeah.
At this point of his career, he had none. I could see him doing the forearms to the back, throwing Steamboat around a little bit, and then Steamboat's experience, because this is the same Steamboat that went a trilogy classic with Ric Flair. Thought he had to think his whole way through those matches. Did everything with Luger, fought Vader, fought all these people at that time. So he would have experience where the Giant would still be, let me get you and I'll put you in the corner. I think he'd get his hands on him, Steamboat would weather the storm, and then outsmart him. Either he would do something to make him miss, bump himself just enough for a 3 count, or, like you said, do something where it's outside, Giant puts him on the pole, goes for something, poles himself, gets counted out.
Or even frustrates him to the point the Giant gets himself DQ.
Yes, because the finish don't have to be a pinfall. It just has to be this guy goes over. And I think from an experience standpoint and from a lack of a moveset standpoint, I have to say Steamboat.
You still with the Giant?
I'm still with the Giant on this one.
Well, let's see.
Those are all valid points, but in the ring, I think the Giant's going to take it.
I still say he's a rag doll. He's getting thrown around.
Well, let's see what our friends have to say. Ken Wallace and Dan Wilson. Ken Wallace, noted Georgia referee, and Dan Wilson, booker and noted manager of the Devil's Rejects, the Reverend Dan Wilson. Shout out for his podcast, by the way, Midnight Mass. I think it's still up and running. Check that out if you get a chance. We've got, according to the Reverend, Ricky Steamboat goes over. Whereas, according to Ken Wallace, Ricky Steamboat goes over. So, they break the tie for us, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat goes over on the Giant. So, that brings us to the last preliminary round match, and then we got a couple more matches to get this bracket to its Elite Eight. We have the modern-day warrior, Kerry Von Erich, going one-on-one with the total package, Lex Luger. Shadow, why don't you start this one off?
Kerry Von Erich, from a skill standpoint, from a charisma standpoint, from an actual wrestling standpoint, Kerry Von Erich goes over the total package. Because no matter when the total package was in his career, no matter when, and least of all when he was world champion, he was the least athletic big man you could find. He never bent his knees. He never bent over to even pick nobody up. He was a robot. And if he did not have Harley Race at this time, I don't even think he would have been over enough to remain the champion. Whereas Kerry Von Erich, when he was NWA champion, he had Texas, and he had a whole bunch of other places with him too. The only thing that got him derailed was he had an issue with being on time. And that's neither here nor there because that doesn't have anything to do with in the ring. But in the ring, one-ankled Kerry Von Erich would have been more than enough to beat the less than total package Lex Luger.
Kerry Von Erich, during his reign, he was that much better than Lex Luger.
I do believe so.
Both weeks of it.
We're talking about the work rate during those 2 weeks. Because if you remember, Luger's whole title reign as world champion was Harley's interfering, Mr. Hughes interfering, Harley's interfering, Mr. Hughes is interfering. So
I'm going to remind you of something in a minute. But anyway,
we go with that.
what do you got there, Mr. Payne?
Kerry Von Erich hits the discus punch in the claw several times to wear out the total package.
Mother son. Don?
That man knows.
Wears him out.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug. Kerry Von Erich.
Son of a...
Man.
Luger wins it. But anyway, you go ahead.
Before he gets in the ring, he does a Scarface.
Say hello to my little friend.
I'm not a fan of Kerry Von Erich
Okay.
for anything, but he was ridiculously athletic.
Mm-hmm.
He wrestled barefooted bad. And
That was Kevin.
that was Kevin. Okay. See? I
They
stopped
brothers, though. They
Yeah,
brothers.
they brothers.
It'd have been a neat trick for Kerry to wrestle barefoot. He only had one foot.
But I saw Lex Luthor and Lex Luthor.
I
Lex
saw him too in the
Luger.
movie.
I saw Lex Luger as the 80s version of Roman Reigns. Whole bunch of height, not a lot of skill. A lot of little girls like the way he looks. A lot of little kids want to be just like him. A whole lot of guys are like, really?
All right.
Because I'm going to tell you this. You're going to put a guy with a mullet over, you put Brian Pillman over. It ain't Lex Luger. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Kerry Von Erich. Right now.
Afro mullet at that.
Yes.
Kerry Von Erich, to me, would go under to Lex Luger because, one, Kerry Von Erich won the World Heavyweight title. What I'm going to say now is not politically correct. I apologize for anyone I offend by this. Kerry Von Erich won the world title because his brother passed away.
Yes.
That's why he won the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yes.
That belt was destined for David Von Erich.
Yeah.
And
He
if
was
it were
still better than Lex Luger.
Well, no, if it was David Von Erich, I would agree with you. It'd be a totally different conversation. But it's not. It's Kerry. Kerry Von Erich had lots of demons, to use professional wrestling parlance. He had lots of demons. He had lots of problems. But Kerry Von Erich, who was a physical specimen like Luger. Okay. So, to me, they're tied there. Kerry Von Erich was a better in-ring performer than Luger. I'll give you that. Charisma, I actually think they're relatively close to one another. Mm-hmm. The charisma was from the flexing and the look and the persona they put on. Luger had the benefit of being around a whole lot of people that could lead him through and guide him if necessary. And at this point in time, much like your argument a couple of weeks ago with Rick Rude, you had to take Paulie into consideration. Mm-hmm. Luger had Harley Race at ringside with him. He had Mr. Hughes at ringside with him. So he had one of the best psychological minds in wrestling at his side when he was world champion. And beyond that, so you got Kerry Von Erich and you've got Luger. Both of them were stopgap champions.
Right.
Because Luger got the belt because Flair left.
Yes.
So there's even that. But the difference being they got it on Luger, they left it on Luger. Luger as a heel is not a great promo, but he's better than Kerry Von Erich. Kerry Von Erich, who went on television and said, "There's only three, there's only one Mona Lisa, one Leaning Tower of Pizza, and one world champion." So, he's a better promo.
Was that Pizza Domino?
No, it's Papa John's.
Well, it is one.
Yes. So I mean, there's so much that Luger would bring to the table, and then when Luger won the title from Hogan, granted he only had it for a week. When he won the title from Hogan, it was so huge, and they made him as a babyface champion. They blew it up so big, and they made such a huge deal out of it. I remember sitting in my college dorm room popping when Luger beat Hogan for the title. Again, should have been the main event of Road Wild. It shouldn't have been the main event of Nitro. But still, it was tremendous. I would put Luger over. Mm-hmm. For the record, I doubt I changed anybody's mind. No. But for the record, just to make myself feel better, both Dan and Ken agree with me that it should be Luger. But we will put Kerry Von Erich moving on. So, alrighty. So, that brings us to Hulk Hogan going one-on-one with the All-American Ron Simmons. What say you, good sir?
Let's see. Come back to me. I got to find my notes.
I'll put mine out there then real quick. Ron Simmons goes over on Hulk Hogan. And I've had some time to think about this on my bracket, just so people can realize I actually had Hogan going over when I wrote my bracket out. But the more I've thought about it, this ain't Hulkamania, folks. This is the Hulk Hogan that shows up and gets booed, and Gene Okerlund has to say the crowd is obviously in mourning as Hulk Hogan is wearing his all black and being somber, and then this is Hollywood Hogan, who was damn good, but he was that good because he had an entourage. It wasn't Hogan, it was Hogan, Hall, and Nash. It couldn't have been just Hogan as a heel. You needed all three pieces to make it work. Ron Simmons was an athletic anomaly. I mean, he was incredibly talented, naturally gifted. He was a tremendous babyface, had great fire, could work his ass off, looked the part of being the champion, and Ron Simmons' one run as world champion meant more than any 2 or 3 WCW Hogan reigns put together. So, I say Ron Simmons.
I say Ron Simmons. I say Ron Simmons because this is not the Hulk Hogan that slammed Andre the Giant. This is not the Hulk Hogan who slammed King Kong Bundy. This is not the Hulk Hogan who kicked out at 3 1/4 of the Ultimate Warrior's finish. This is Hollywood Hulk Hogan. This
True
is
story.
It's true.
It's a true story.
Yeah.
He kicked out, made the guy look like crap. It still makes me mad every time I see the match. Which, but that's not the Hogan we're dealing with. That Hogan, you can't put Ron Simmons over. That's not the guy. This is Hollywood Hogan, like you said, with an entourage. He was lazier because WCW guaranteed him all this money. He wasn't the guy he wasn't the say your prayers, eat your vitamins, babyface hero. So he has no edge against a guy who was fresh out of Doom, one of the most successful tag teams of that era.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh out of Florida State, where he was an All-American, killing people on the gridiron and coming into wrestling and earning his own and becoming a legend. I mean, he earned that legend. It wasn't booked for him like Vince booked Hogan into being a legend, and that's a shoot. Ron earned that. I mean, I'm sure Hogan earned it too, but I'm saying Ron scratched and clawed and created his legacy when Hogan's was served on a sushi platter. Just saying. I put Ron Simmons over with a big power slam.
Shadow?
Ron Simmons, just because even if you're not basing it on the NWO Hogan when he was WCW champ after he beat Flair, was such a notch below Hogan WWF champ that the intensity that Ron Simmons would have brought to the table, the charisma, the strength, the I'm not putting up with this that he would have brought to the table would have been more than what if Hulk Hogan had hulked up in either incarnation as Hulkamania or
Hulkster.
or any of or Hollywood, any WCW version of Hulk Hogan would not have had enough to deal with a fired up Ron Simmons that was ready to go. So I think after a 7-minute match, no more than 10, Ron Simmons.
What say you, sir?
Well, I got my head screwed on backwards for this one. Every time I Hulk Hogan, I think red and gold, hulking up and winning. So I went with Hogan. It was a good match, goes good, but 3 punches, a boot, and a leg drop.
Yep. And truthfully, that's probably how it would have got booked because Hogan had creative control.
Yes.
But
Yes.
For what it's worth, apparently Dan Wilson realized that and booked it to be Hogan and going over on Simmons. Let me check the other one here. Although Ken Wallace said Ron Simmons, and so do we. The consensus says Ron Simmons moves on. That brings us to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and not Lex Luger. I mean, Kerry Von Erich. Ricky and Kerry Von Erich, Steamboat.
Spot fest, Steamboat.
No, it would be handhold, Steamboat.
Yeah, but it should be spot fest. A lot of spots in there. Lots of arm drags.
It'll be lots of arm
tosses.
yeah.
And lots of fast moving around it, and then Steamboat crossbody over with.
Yeah, Steamboat, not much. It'd be a match you'd see on a Saturday at 6 o'clock. Just from a skill,
We put him over Luger.
just from a skill standpoint, Von Erich in the same ring with Steamboat is a completely different animal than him in the ring with Luger. He's outclassed, outmatched, outstyled, easy.
I don't have this matchup on my card. But,
Okay.
I had in this scenario, Steamboat will win that.
All right. So, the Elite Eight is now set. Here is the Elite Eight to determine the ultimate NWA/WCW World Champion from 81 to 2001. We have Ric Flair versus Diamond Dallas Page, Sting versus Ravishing Rick Rude, Ron Simmons, the All-American, versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and Big Van Vader versus the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. So, next time, we will start the Elite Eight and see what we can see as we go to crown the ultimate NWA/WCW World Heavyweight Champion from 81 to 2001. Until then, I'm Mike. We got Don Matthews, Phillip Pain, and Shadow Jackson. We will see you in 7 days.
Good luck.